Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you all are at. I'm really excited to be here, and I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me, and I hope you can totally be with us on this conversation today. My name is Serena Jane, and I am the creator of Masala Bhangra. I've been teaching fitness for the last 28 years. I created Masala Bhangra 20 years ago. I brought it to the fitness world. It certainly has not been an easy road at all. But it has been a beautiful journey, and I'm really excited that that has happened. I actually wanted to today have conversations with friends of mine, eye-opening conversations. So today we're not going to do our actual workout, but we will actually do a conversation, and it's Pride Month. And I'm just really excited to be having two of my really good friends here with me today. I've actually enjoyed conversating with them for a really long time, and today I just really want to share their story. Many of you guys probably have seen their story. Their story has been around the world, been shared because it was such a unique story, and families coming together and everyone supporting. It's like a dream come true. And so it's been exciting that I've been able to have this conversation with them and then bring you on here. But recently something did happen, and I did watch a video clip, which I will share with one of them, and it struck a chord with me. So that's why I called them up and I said, I think we need to do something. It being Pride Month, I'd really love to just bring you guys on and have a fun education. My intention of today's conversation with you all, whether you watch it now, whether you listen to it now, whether you come on later and listen to it, wherever you're at, I'm just excited that you're here, and my goal is to educate. My goal is to inspire. My goal is to open up thought processes and maybe thinking and think out of the box, because I think it's really important that we do that. I grew up in an Indian community. I grew up in a very Indian family household. I was very close to my family. I still am. So I was very lucky to have that upbringing. But with that upbringing, there was just a lot of conversations that were never talked about because it just was not in my forefront. And so as I've gotten older, there's a lot of conversations, that have been happening that's in my forefront today. And so I just am really excited to share with you guys my guests. And I know you have seen them before. I know you have probably read their story. And so I'm going to go ahead and bring them in, and let's have fun. Please ask any questions. Please be open to listening, have an open mind, and I don't know, just go with me on this. There's no formality, and I'm just going with the flow on this one. All right? Okay, here we go. I'm going to bring them in. Hi, guys.
Hey, Serena.
How's it going?
Good. How are you? We're doing well. Every time we say, hey, Serena, my phone thinks I'm talking to Siri. So every time I say, hey, Serena, this thing goes off and it's like, how can I help you?
Do you want to call Serena right now?
Actually, I think Serena would be way better than Siri. Apple should reconsider.
Right. I feel bad for all of those people whose name are Alexa, because I had a girlfriend and a student named Alexa, and man, she got ripped on big time all the time. So
it beats being named Karen right now, right?
All right, so you guys, I'm really excited to have you here, and I hope everyone can see us, and I hope everyone can chime in. And I really just want to have a fun and lively conversation with you guys, and thank you for doing this with me. I don't know who it's going to impact, but I'm sure it's going to inspire somebody or the other. And what really prompted me to want to have this conversation with you guys is because, and I'm just going to get right into it, Vaibhav sent me a link just out of the blue saying, hey, watch this and then consider donating. And I said, sure, no problem. So I watched it immediately, and I think I'm going to get teary-eyed right away because when I did see this, it was a short little clip, and it was Vaibhav, I think it was your dad, saying something to the lines of support your kids. I think he said it in Hindi, but support your kids. They matter, and whatever they're going through, it's okay, and that we have to support them, and it doesn't really matter what society has to say. I know that society plays a big role in our lives, and you just have to push them out, and it doesn't matter what society has to say. You have to stand with your kids. That resonated really big with me. My mom has stood by my side from day one, and both my mom and dad. And so that resonated really big with me. And what prompted you to share that link with me? What's that link about? Tell me.
Sure. So thank you so much, first of all, Serena, for having us, and thanks for all the incredible work that you've been doing with Masala Bhangra, keeping us all Desis fit, and especially during this time of COVID, where there's so much of isolation. I think it's influencers like yourself. Parag and I were just talking this morning. It's influencers like yourself who've made such a difference in keeping us all positive. So thank you so much for all your work, first of all.
Of course.
Yeah. So what I shared with you, Serena, is actually part of a web documentary that a filmmaker named Ashish Kumar is making. So about 4 years ago, not right? 4 years ago, Ashish reached out to Parag's dad saying, Mr. Mehta, I've heard a lot of, conversation about you and your son that you guys do around the LGBTQ space and talking about Desi stories. So I'd like to tell your story and your son's story. So if you're interested and open, we'd love to, make a little web documentary. And that the purpose of that documentary would become sort of like an education tool for other Desi families who could actually watch it. And, it could be somebody who's closeted, somebody who's come out, somebody who has come out and has parents who, want to support or are, looking for resources.
But I think the main thing is he realized that there were a dearth of stories about LGBTQ people in the South Asian community. Yeah. And so he wanted to try and correct that. So when he reached out to us, he said, can I come? Can I film you guys telling your story? And we're like, yeah, sure, we're happy to talk to you. But then he realized, I don't just want to talk to you, I want to talk to your parents. Yeah. Because so much of who needs to be persuaded by this are other Desi parents in the US, in Canada, in England, but also back home in India. If they can see relatable parents like themselves who are loving and accepting their kids, I think it would make a difference. And so the end result is a project called Body World Home. It just launched a couple of months ago. And he's continuing to add stories to it. So it's not a traditional documentary where you sit down and you watch an hour and a half long movie. It is a series of stories that he's collecting and putting on this website, hoping that the viewer will find a connection to one of these stories in their own life.
Yeah. So the video I sent you was basically a small excerpt from that web documentary. Ashish shot this right before my wedding in 2019 with Parag. So he basically just interviewed my parents, and it sort of brought so much of emotion for me personally, because the subject of me coming out to my parents was very, very hard. I came out to them in 2013, and it was a very difficult journey for them. But from there, being, struggling as parents of somebody who's just come out, to now speaking on a documentary openly, publicly, and talking about how they love me, how they support me, and how every parent should do that, was just very, very powerful. And it was just a tool. And, I wanted to share it with you and all my close friends. And just let them know that this is out there, and if you have any resources that you want to give to others, this could be one of them.
Okay, why am I getting emotional here?
Because we love seeing our parents accept and embrace us, and even when it's somebody else's parents, it just reminds us of our core values as Desis, as Indians, as Jains, is that we take care of each other and we stand by each other.
But and also, I think I personally feel, Serena, that you and Parag especially resonate with it as well, because you both grew up in a dichotomy. Like, you grew up in Indian households where possibly you both are second generation Americans, where you are in an Indian household growing up, and then you go out, you live with your American life. So there was so much of constant struggle within your own lives. But to see your parents accepting the way you are in whatever you're doing, I think it's just powerful. So I feel so much for the two of you.
There's a lot of history between Parag and I. And I don't know if you remember Parag. So guys, let me just give you a little history. I've known Parag for a really long time, but really everyone actually knows his father. His father was a huge speaker and at the Jain conventions. And so within every culture, there's these conventions that we attend to keep our culture alive, to keep our religion alive. But really, we would go there to hang out and meet friends and really socialize and possibly meet a husband or a wife. That's why a lot of parents come. And I remember very distinctly, so I was a speaker at one of these Jaina conventions as well. And I remember while in between my sessions, I attended a session with Vijay Uncle, which is Parag's father. And he spoke openly about, and it was almost like, to me, he spoke openly about his son being gay. He spoke openly about many things and many topics that I think everybody was shocked that they didn't know what to do. But after the hour and a half, I remember we all like came up to him afterwards, and everybody was asking him for relationship experience, or sorry, relationship advice or something or the other. And we were all eager to talk to him because his approach was just so open, and he was approachable to talk about these things. There was something about him that we could all relate to him. So that I was growing up with that. And then many years later, when I saw that you guys got married, and I saw that this is your dad and him speaking out, and I was like, oh my God, this is Parag. And I knew we passed by each other. I knew we grew up with one another, but it was one of those things we never really hung out. It was only when your father's video of his speech at your wedding went viral. That was a very powerful speech, very, very powerful. And I stood there and I saluted your dad because I was like, wow, Uncle, you've gone through a lot, but it's amazing how you have put it out there and you've embraced. And when anyone will see that from the outside, they're going to see what a perfect picture.
Well, I think, look, both with Vaibhav's dad in this documentary and with my dad in that wedding toast and at the conventions, what's remarkable about them, and you know this, Serena, is that in Desi families, when there's hard topics, we tend not to want to talk about them. We definitely don't talk about them in public. And the fact that both of our fathers had the courage to speak about this in such a public way, the impact is not on us. We live with these supportive dads. We benefit from them. We're fine. But the number of people in the community who have come and said, seeing your dad speak in this way, including, by the way, in Hindi, because I think that's the other thing that made Vaibhav's dad's piece so emotional, is to hear a dad in Hindi talk about give our children the right to live their lives, has such an impact because all of a sudden it becomes transformational. It says to those kids and to their parents, there's a different way to be. And that's really, I think our fathers are both incredible teachers.
I think so too. It's funny how both of your fathers, their speech resonated with me in such a different. So now being Indian, I am married. I also have, marital, I'm married and stuff. And so I'm sure we go through marital issues, right? You guys have your marital stuff. I have my marital stuff, but the message is the same, whether you're gay, whether you're straight, whether you're trans, whether you're whatever, the message is the same. And that is to stand behind your children, because if you as a parent can't stand behind them, who will? And there are many friends that will support. Don't get me wrong. There are many friends that will stand and support you. But I think at the end of the day, when as a child, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when you don't have the support of your parents, everything else can be great. But it's when that support comes from the parents, that's when it's a flip turner, right?
It's the most important thing, right? We know from all the research and studies that children, particularly gay kids, who are supportive and raised in a loving and accepting home, their metrics on every indice are much, much better. They're healthier, they live longer, they're more successful, they do better in school. So absolutely, you can't underestimate the power of having that safety, because at the end of the day, that's what we all want to be. We all want to be safe. We all want to belong. And I think all three of us were lucky to have parents who made us feel that way.
So when you both came out to your parents, was it easy? For both of you? Was it hard?
It was a process. Do you want to go first?
No, you go.
Wait. Was it easy? Was it hard? Was it a process? Or did they know? Could they guess?
It's a good question.
Yeah, so it was definitely a process. And I, to be honest, was deeply closeted, Serena, growing up in India, had no frame of reference for what gay was. And even when I found out much later in life, I didn't have a lot of resources in India, grew up in New Delhi. And then finally, when I moved to the US in 2011, I knew that I was gay and I wanted to be honest to myself and to everybody around me. So I promised myself when I come to America, I'm just going to be honest. I'm not going to live that dual life that I was living in India. When I'm in Delhi, I'm telling everybody, oh yeah, I have a girlfriend down south. And when I
always had a girlfriend in Canada.
I had a girlfriend down south. So yeah, so I didn't want to I did not want to do that. And, to my luck, and thank God for that, I met this guy in 2012 at a Pride parade. And then, there started a love story. But our love story, obviously had hurdles, because this Parag had come out almost 15 years by that time. And I was very, very closeted. I knew I loved him and I wanted to make it work. So I remember, there were conversations that we would have, and Parag, to his credit, would never ever force me to come out. He was very, very supportive because he was in my position once upon a time, so he understood and he was very patient. And you know him, Serena. He openly talks about him being gay. He's an activist himself. So for an activist to be dating somebody who's so deeply closeted and respecting that other person is huge. Was so big for me. So we were together we've been together for now 9 years. But in that process, in 2013, Parag mentioned to me, he said, "Well, you don't owe it to anybody, but if you definitely owe it to your parents to share your truth with them, because they are such loving people." And Parag had met my parents at that time. And
I also said to you, because the thing about Vaibhav is he's a very religious person, right? From our very first date, I remember we talked so much about how important faith is to him. We both grew up in the Jain faith, like you did, Serena. But I was never like, I didn't study a lot of it. I didn't really pay as much attention until I met him. And I said to Vaibhav, I said, one of the central tenets of Jainism is to seek and speak truth. And if you're constantly
right, to live and
live and let live.
To live and
let live, right? Our job is to live without judgment. Our job is, we walk in our own karma. At the end of the day, you only reach nirvana and moksha by yourself.
Yep.
But it's all based on your deeds. And every year we say Michami Dukram, right? Every year we do Paryushan and we fast. But at the end of it all, what do we say? We say that we want to cleanse ourselves of karmas. And I said, every time you lie, every time you deceive, every time you try to cover up your life, you are earning karma. So as a religious person, live your faith. And that was really when he changed.
So in 2013, I was in Switzerland. My parents were visiting, and on our last day of our trip, they were about to leave, and I sat down with my parents, and I said, "Mommy, Papa, I want to share something with you." And they're like, "Ha, beta, tell us, what do you want to say?" And so I held their hands, and I just, burst into tears. And my parents were like, "Are you all right? Everything okay?" I said, "Yeah, but I just wanted to share with you that I don't want to get married." They said, "Yeah, a little more here." And then I'm like, "I don't like girls." They're like, "Okay, we're a little confused right now." So then I said, "I'm gay." And for them, it was a word that they'd never heard. So I had to explain it to them, what gay was. And obviously it was very, very shocking to them. But to their credit, immediately my father came up, and he just put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "It's going to be okay, beta. Me between son, it's going to be all right." And that started a series of questions.
I just want to have you consider for a moment what that means for a Desi father who doesn't even fully understand what his son is saying. This term "gay" is new to him. There is no term that he knows at that time for what this is. But his first reaction is, "My son is crying. My son is vulnerable. So whatever he's telling me, I need to reassure him that it's going to be all right." And that's the magic of both of our fathers, because my father did the same thing. They immediately embraced us. This idea that you said, Serena, right? Not letting a split second go by where we had to question whether or not our fathers were going to love us and stand by us. Yeah. That's the great gift that they gave us. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so, I was just telling them, and then my mom in this conversation, Serena, said, "Beta, I think I failed as a parent." And I immediately cringed, and I'm like, "Why are you saying that? Are you saying this because I'm gay? Because you haven't failed as a parent." She said, no, I'm not saying that because of that. I'm happy for who you are. I'm proud of you. But I think I failed as a parent because for 25 years of your life, you hid such a big secret from us. So I, as a parent, failed because I couldn't give you that safe space. I couldn't give you that comfort that you could share your truth with me.
She said, "My job as a parent is to worry about you. Your job as a child is not to worry about me." And I remember when you called me from Zurich that night to say, "I did it. I told my parents," and you told me what your mom said. I told you right then and there, everything is going to be okay. Because any mother who reacts like that, she knows the right priorities. Love your kid first and foremost. Everything else is secondary.
But when I did tell them, and that night went really well. But the next morning, they left for Delhi, and after that, it was a very long process. They liked me, they supported me, they were very happy for me, but they said, "Don't talk about it to anybody, just keep it to yourself. We support you, nobody else needs to know." So that was a process.
So when you say, did they have an idea? Do you think that when you came out, for both of you, do you think that they had some sort of idea of, and I'll say this in Hindi, "Yaar, ye to shaadi nahi kar raha, it's time aa gaya, it's his time now to get married. Why isn't he not looking at his biodatas?" And all of these terms I'll explain for everyone who's watching. But Do they have an inkling?
So I think all parents have inklings, but I think for Indian parents especially, they think it's a phase. And I think they just choose to ignore it in my case. And then, for my parents, the reason I actually came out was my brother had just gotten married a year before, and it was my turn now. So they actually asked me point blank. They said, "Hey, if there's anybody in your life, let us know."
They were starting to send him rishtas. He was getting
said,
rishtas.
otherwise we'll start looking. And I'm like, I'm not even settled. Can you just hold on? And they're like, no,
that was so awkward for us. Our first year of dating, he would show me these emails from like these random uncles that are friends of his dad. They'd be like, look, this uncle sent a rishta. And I'm like, I'm your boyfriend. like,
and I would show him a picture, saying, Paraxi, competition.
This is your competition.
Okay, so for everyone who's watching now or later, just a few things about our Indian culture. I'm going to try to wrap this up quick because it's a long-winded conversation and there's no end. Whether you grew up in the United States, whether you grew up in India, Indian families keep their cultures alive in many ways through the cultural Diwali festivals, through Garba, through all of the cultural things that we do, but then also with marriage as well. The Indian culture believes that the children should get young because they want them to then obviously reproduce and have more kids, and everyone is young so that you're not older and running around like an old person around your kids, but they want everyone to get there young and at the right age. Generally, the right age is around, 22 to 26, something like that, where then the parents actually go and find you a suitable boy or a suitable girl for your match. And that's what's called a biodata. And a biodata is pretty much like a resume. It has your name, your date of birth, your time of birth, where you were born, all of that.
Hobbies.
Right? And then it has all of your hobbies. It's like a resume, all of your hobbies and where you graduated, what kind of family you come from, what the mother, father, business-wise do, all of that. And I respect that and I understand where they come from because essentially that's what we do anyway if we meet somebody. We don't have the biodata in front of us, but we ask questions. I know that when I met my husband, I happened to marry a Jain man, which is shocking to my entire family because they expected me to marry somebody else, not Jain, and will be the very Jain man that I met. But there's no accident that I married him, and I do believe marriages are made in heaven. Mm-hmm. However, our biodatas, when we met, our second conversation was like a 15-hour long conversation. It was like we were on a flight, and we went back and forth on, all of those questions. Do you want children? And it was so casual, but we assessed one another. We just both knew that this is we're talking about our biodatas. What's your family like? What's my family like? What do your parents do? All of those things is a biodata. And so now here, let's just fast forward. From the outside, everybody, guys, if you haven't seen Vaibhav and Parag's wedding, it's out there. The highlights are out there, and it's magical. It's beautiful. It's perfect. I mean, it is a dream come true. And so when I see these two, they both are of the same faith. They both are well-to-do. They both come from great families. So the biodata just keep matching up over and over again, which is like, oh my God, this is amazing. But I know that with all of that amazing stuff, and everything being perfect, it's not like that for everybody out there. So for example, let's say there is somebody in India right now watching us or will watch later and listen on, and maybe they're not as well-to-do as you. Maybe they're not as well-educated as you guys are. And maybe they want to come out and tell their parents something. And it doesn't even matter about whether you're gay or not or something. It's just they want to come out and tell their parents something, communicate that to them because it's just bottling them up inside so much. What would be your words of advice to say that? Because somebody could be looking at you going, guys, you have it all together and your parents are open-minded. My parents are not.
Yeah. Well, we do get those. We get a lot of those messages.
Especially after a wedding, yeah.
Yeah, after we got married, when media coverage started happening about our wedding ceremony, we got a lot of messages especially from guys in India, who said, we found so much hope and inspiration in your wedding. We love that you did it according to Jain rituals, but this could never happen in India, or this could never happen in my family. And look, the response I have to that is, number one, our wedding and our marriage and our lives are not perfect, right? We try to put out the positive. We also talk pretty openly about the challenges. And Vaibhav talked about the challenge that his parents went through over several years of accepting us and accepting him. But also, we struggle with mental health issues. Vaibhav's been very open talking about what it is like to live with anxiety and depression, because we understand that the only way things are going to get better is if we start talking about them. That's what our fathers did. That's what we're trying to model as well. We have to talk about the challenges. These are about two families coming together, and there's going to be issues. There's going to be incompatibilities, and that's okay, because we're no different than a straight couple in that sense.
I was going to say, you have it. I'm a straight couple, my husband and I, and we can't wait to hang out with you guys. But you have the same marital issues that a straight couple does? Is it the same?
Yeah.
Education.
Yes, it's the same, and it's. I mean, don't want to say it's more complicated, but in some ways, you know what makes it really difficult, Serena, is that in a traditional heterosexual marriage like yours, at least everybody understands the role of the man, the role of the female. Now, there's a lot of sexism. You know this, right? As a woman, as an AC woman, there's certain expectations of a bahu versus a jamai, right? Or a damad, son-in-law versus daughter-in-law. So yeah, there are all kinds of expectations. And I'll be honest, when we first got engaged, there were a lot of folks in our extended families who asked us the question, who's the man and who's the woman in the relationship? Yeah. And we're like, we're both men. But I understand why they were asking. Because so much of Indian culture is we relate to a person based on their gender and based on which side of the family they're on. Sure. So the girl side of the family is less power than the male side of the family.
Sure.
And in fact,
I'm hoping it changes, but yes.
We need to change this. And in fact, we learned this in putting together our wedding. When we were designing our wedding, Vaibhav worked really hard to design a gender-neutral wedding ceremony that still kept all the Jain traditions alive, right? We did the 7 pharaohs around the fire. We did the saptapadi. We did all these things. But a few weeks before we got married, we were having lunch with one of my uncles and aunts. And when Vaibhav got up to go to the restroom, my aunt leaned in and she said, hey, just make sure that at your wedding that we're the boys' side and his are the girls' side, because the boys' side get treated like kings and the girls' side are treated like servants. And I wanted to look at her and say, you're a woman. This once happened to you. Like, do you not even realize what you're saying? Right. But it's the cycle, right? The cycle of oppression and repression, oppression, repression. We got to break the cycle.
We have to. No, we have to break the cycle. I'm fired up because our conversation could go on for hours. Yes, we have to break the cycle. I remember, when I was younger, I still am young. My mom, so long story short, my mom and dad came to the state in the 70s, Parag, similar to your parents, right? Yeah. Built a really long life here. And my mom is still, jiving today and rocking. But they really built a nice life together. We had a great upbringing, my sister and I. We grew up in a very Indian community. I can't complain about our upbringing. It was awesome in every which way. So when everything happened with my father out of the blue, my father passed away to a massive cardiac arrest at the age of 47. And that was just the biggest shock. My mom was 40 years old. Can you imagine a 40-year-old with 2 kids, just lost her husband, and she had 2 ways to go. So talk about women oppression and talk about women's, uplifting them. She had 2 choices. She could go back to India, and everyone was there. My grandparents were there. My aunts and uncles were there. They could all help out with her and the kids. But then what would be her life? Yeah. She built it so nicely here. She's an educated woman. She's super independent. She's smart as hell. And she basically decided to stay on. Now, I'm a young kid looking at her and thinking, I'm just going to follow you. You're my mom. But today, as a woman, when I see that and everything that she went through, like, wow, you really, you fought tooth and nail to stand your ground, to be where you're at, to stand with your 2 kids and allow us to do what we have to do. I pursued a career that people laughed at me. People said, this is not going to go anywhere, get married. So it's similar to your sort of fight in trying to figure out, people saying, don't say anything, this, that, the other. It's just all so similar, and it shouldn't have to be that way. It really shouldn't. I remember we were at a wedding one time, and my mom was wearing a sari, and this was years after my father passed away. We just are really happy people, thank God. My mom loves to laugh. My sister and I love to laugh. We're happy, and we chose to pursue life with a positive attitude. It's really better than sitting here and sulking because, stuff happens. So we pursued a really happy lifestyle, and we all are happy today. That's our outlook in life. And we were at a wedding, and my mom had a sari, and I was my mom's date everywhere. And we were just, she's my best friend. She's my shiro. She's my everything to me today. So I love going with her. I can say anything to her. So she got some henna done at this wedding, and I was getting my henna done. And we were like, look, and some aunt, the buaji, came up to my mom and said, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" And she said this all in Hindi. "Why did you get mehndi done? You're a widow. That shouldn't be happening. You shouldn't do this thing. Don't even do this thing. Oh my God, go hide it. Go hide your hands covered in your saris." So then, like half an hour later or an hour later, I saw my mom, and her hands were curled up in a sari, and I'm just like, "You look kind of, what's up, Mom? Are you cold? What's going on?" And she's just like, "Nothing." And I said, "What happened?" And she told me, and I was like furious. I said, "First of all, please let your hands loose. Secondly, live. You're a woman. You are a young woman. You're a lively woman. Please let's not let those oppressive thinking dictate our lives, because it's just not possible. This is why we chose to stay here." And sometimes my mom would say to me, "It's amazing how you have this thinking." And she doesn't know how to communicate sometimes, but she knows that we will stand by her side no matter what. And so I said, "Please let your sari down. Let your arms out and free. Don't worry about what Buaji has to say." And then I walked up right up to Buaji. And of course, my mom just slapped her hand on my shoulder and said, don't
make a scene.
Right? And I'm like, and she's like, "Don't say anything." And I'm like, "All right, you know what? Just to respect you, I won't say anything, but let your hands out." It's a simple thing like that. Just let you.
We all have experiences like that. I know you've had that with some of the aunties in your community. I've had it with mine. Yeah. Look, my first response is always like, you got to stand up for the aunties. The second is you got to turn them off. Like, their voices don't matter nearly as much as the voice inside of your own head. But then I was saying there's a third piece of this, which is we need more leadership in our community. When my grandfather, who I loved and adored, when he was dying, he said to my grandmother, he said, "When I pass, do not wear a white sari. Do not give up your jewelry. I want you to wear color." And at his funeral, my grandmother's, my dadi, she showed up wearing a colorful sari. And we explained that this was my grandfather's wish. The power of the men in our culture, especially elder men, the wise elders, taking a firm stance on this, that we will not allow the women in our community to be diminished based on these old notions. That changes, because what's amazing about your story, Serena, is it wasn't a man who said that to your woman. The sexism, the misogyny often comes from women to women. And that's the cycle I'm talking about breaking.
Yep.
Absolutely. No, we have to. So going back to, well, I have 2 daughters now. And so I plan to, stand with them and say, listen, we got to move forward with an open mind thinking. We have to. Everybody in our world we're going to love. Kindness will prevail, and open-minded thinking will prevail. I remember my mom didn't understand what the word gay meant when I came to New York on my own, pursued Masala Bhangra. New York City is my life. It's given me a career. It's given me two legs to stand on. And I flew. I mean, I'm celebrating 20 years of Masala Bhangra because I did in New York City. So
that's awesome. Congratulations.
And I remember when my mom, we started hanging out with some of my gay friends, and I would say, my mom would be like, "Oh my God, he's so cute. What's his name?" And I said, "Who are you talking about?" And she would tell me, she's like, "He's perfect. He's a good-looking Indian guy. He's doing really well. He's so nice. He seems to really like you." I kept saying, "Who are you talking about?" And she, would say, "This gentleman." I go, "Mom, he's gay." And she's like, "Whatever. I don't know what that means, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "All right, let me educate you on this. Let's sit down." And it took some time. It took a process for me to explain to her that he's a real person too. He's a real person with real feelings. He just is attracted to a man versus a woman. And it just took some process. And now, today, I'm proud to say that she completely understands. And she even has some really close friends that are gay. They come to her for advice. They come to her for relationship advice, because we have a lot of friends around us, whether you're gay, straight, whatever it is. My mom has been open now to it, susceptible to it, where she understands, okay, this is a thing. This is life. This is what's going to happen. My kids are going to be the firsthand exposed to all of this, and I'm okay with it. I want them to know what all this is about. It has to be. It's going to be openly talked about, so they understand that they're not in the dark as well. But I think it's important to educate parents. because my mom, there's obviously that buaji, that aunt of mine is not going to come and educate my mother about somebody who's being gay. So I'm going to educate her, right? It is my job to make sure that she understands this, because I need her to be open about it and see that it's out there, it exists, and it's not going anywhere. So let's not fight it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, Serena, you mentioned that you had to educate your mother. I think we all have to try to educate each other. Like, I understand, like, it is sometimes exhausting to explain to people ourselves what gay is. But, you know, when I came out to my, you know, my extended family, my parents, you know, shared with their siblings, they had a lot of questions. So I started to identify allies well before my parents even came out to them. I had young cousins who were like in 10th, 11th grade. And this story is actually of my nani, my mother's mother, my grandmother, who lived in a small town in Uttar Pradesh in India. And I met my cousins had come over. They knew about me in Parag. They were so excited. And I said, you know, now what you have to do is go back. When you go home, you have to just mention the subject to your grandmother, like very subtly. You don't have to mention Vaibhav Bhaiya or Parag Bhaiya. You just have to mention it as a subject that, you know, there are also people, you know, out there who are gay, who are attracted to men, but, you know, live healthy, successful lives. And they did that. They actually did that. And when my mom was ready to tell her mom, she took it so much better because she had context. She understood. And my mother was worried sick. She was like, oh my God, I can never tell my mother that. And I really wanted my grandmother to know, because she was the only surviving grandparent among the two of us. And I really wanted Parag to meet her. So right before we got married in 2019, we had the pleasure of actually going and seeing my nani. And, you know, she blessed Parag and she loved Parag just the way she would love her own grandchild. And it just showed. And, you know, within our family, Serena, there were aunts who, my mother's siblings, who said, Vaibhav's mother gave him too much freedom. That's why he's become this way and all that. And the moment my nani said that, everybody shut up.
Oh, wow.
Shut up.
Well, because when the matriarch speaks, people listen. Look, I think that we make a lot of jokes and even fair criticism about the auntie culture. I wonder if there's a way to turn the auntie network into a force for good as opposed to a force for evil. Yeah. Because you just mentioned that aunties can be an incredible information and support network. So the way that gay guys go to your mom and ask her for relationship advice, there is so much wisdom and so much knowledge in these elder women of our community. And if we could educate them and train them and speak to their compassionate nature and have them be a force for good, what an amazing thing that would be. When we got married, if you look at the video of our wedding and the photos, we're surrounded by elder aunties in our families. In fact, even when the final ritual was performed, it was all of our mother's best friends and sisters who stood around us and officially consecrated our marriage. The role of the auntie in an Indian family is incredibly important, but only if we direct their thinking and their mindset in a positive direction.
I do believe it is starting to change, Parag. I do believe that. I believe that, you know, I'm, you know, to if you guys decide to have children, or if somebody else's children today, I'm an auntie. I don't look like an auntie. I don't act like an auntie, but I am an auntie. You know, I'm a young woman auntie with vivacious, you know, bouncy hair everywhere. And
might add.
We look forward to our kids having you as a female role model.
I am an auntie. And so I think the younger generation, I consider myself first generation just because my parents migrated here. I was the first to be born here. So our generation now is open-minded. We are surrounded around people that are going through a lot of stuff, and we've been around it. We're exposed to it. So I think it's our job to take on that role as the auntie, right? And create that force of a powerful community of women around us to say, we got your back. Don't even worry about this. But we've got to also make sure that we create this environment where children are able to open up and speak without having to hesitate and be scared and worry later, will this come back in my face? Yeah. So that is my job today with my own children, as well as then other children. I want to create that around them, and I want them to know that at least I'm here to be able to stand for you. But I think there's a lot that's changing, and I fully believe that because I want to. You know, it's the older generation that may not understand, and that's okay. And I've got over that already. It is now up to us, my sister, me, you, our generation, to make sure that we educate people around us of just speaking and communicating what is the truth within yourself, whether you're gay, whether you're straight, whether you're queer, whatever it is our job to make sure that we understand and we love you for it, and that our children are going to love you for it, and that everyone's around us. Communication, right? Communication, right? Speaking about it, talking about your feelings. That's the one thing about the Indian culture that I've seen over the years. That's the one thing that we don't do. It's exactly what your father had said. Don't talk about it. Don't tell anyone about it. Just keep it on the DL. And I can understand from his perspective. He doesn't want to be, out by his community. But then I think after a while, he probably has said to you, okay, you know what? Go speak about it. Right. Go talk about it. And in fact, fight your way. And in fact, speaking of, I believe recently you guys were covered on a lot of news. CBS just did a big news story on you guys where, correct me if I'm wrong, you're trying to get your marriage license recognized in India, because it's recognized here in the United States. Is it recognized in India, and where are we at with that?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Parag and I are petitioning the Delhi High Court in India to get legal recognition for same-sex marriage. And this started because, right before the pandemic, Parag and I, had decided to just register our marriage, with the consulate here in India. Parag would actually mention, Parag, you want to talk about the Foreign Marriage Act first?
Yeah, so essentially, there's a law in India called the Foreign Marriage Act, which says that if you're an Indian national, which Vaibhav is, and you're living abroad and you get married while you're abroad, that marriage is recognized in India. Most countries have this compact, right? Because otherwise we'd all have to keep getting remarried every time we move to a different country. Well, when we tried to register our marriage a week before lockdown started, we went to the consulate in New York and they denied us. And then we said, okay, if you won't register our marriage, will you at least perform our marriage? Because they can do that too. We brought in a couple of witnesses. And they said no to that too. So then I asked a senior consular officer, will you give us the denial in writing? And he said no. And I said, are you denying us because we're a same-sex couple?
Wow.
And he looked me right in the eye, Serena, and he said yes.
Wow.
And even though we expected this kind of response, I can't describe to you what it feels like to have a senior government official say right to your face, I'm discriminating against you because you're gay. It was heartbreaking. And so we talked about it a lot because we weighed the pros and cons. There are a lot of downsides to suing the government. But in the end, we decided that we are in a position where we can fight this fight. All the things you mentioned about the privilege that we come from, to have loving families, to have the support, to have the resources, to be safe. Yeah. And then we talked to his parents, and I have to really give his parents a lot of credit. At first, they were hesitant. They're like, are you sure you want to do this? What if the government harasses us? What if people come and harass us? You know how India is. Like, you can never be sure what this will bring out in extremist thinking. But in the end, they realized, they're like, you're doing this not for yourselves. You're doing this for millions of other people like you who just want to come out of the shadows. And so in October of last year, we filed this petition with the Delhi High Court. Our hearing is set for July the 6th. Hopefully, the government will finally let us have a hearing. And look, whatever happens, win or lose, we're probably going to the Supreme Court. And if we win at the Supreme Court, which I believe Vaibhav will, Vaibhav versus the Union of India is the name of the case.
Well, let me tell you, when I saw that for the first time, Serena, it was unnerving. When talking about it versus, when my lawyers sent us the paperwork to sign, I was like, oh my God.
This is real.
This is real.
The Union of India, I'm like, oh my God. But then, I'll be very honest, for 24 hours, I was very, very uneasy. Didn't mention it to anybody, just mentioned it to Parag. But, it also made me understand the gravity of the situation, like how this could impact others. Remember, we were telling you all these messages that we received from people, when we got married. It would impact millions. It would impact millions. So, it was just a leap of faith that both of us had to take. Our lawyers are incredible. You should look them up. The names are Menaka Guruswamy and Arundhati Karju. They were actually featured as Time 100 in 2018.
They are themselves a lesbian couple, and they successfully fought the case to decriminalize homosexuality 3 years ago. Right. But look, I will say this about the case. We'll see what happens. We feel very optimistic. Yeah. There are some people, including good friends of ours, we went to for advice to say, should we fight this battle? And they said, be careful, because this is a time of great nationalism in India. We know that, far right forces are really taking a lot of power. And this petition might be seen as a critique of the government or as anti-national. And I just want to say to anybody listening, especially our friends in India, there is nothing more nationalistic, there's nothing more patriotic than fighting to make your country better. It is a sign of how much Vaibhav loves his homeland, how much I love our homeland, that we are fighting to make it true to its promise. Because if you're going to call yourself the world's largest democracy, you should always strive to be the world's most inclusive democracy. And that's what I think this case will do.
That's amazing. And I really hope I hope whoever is going to be judging that day, whoever's going to show up that day, I do hope that they open up their hearts to see that this matters and that this is going to make a huge difference for everybody. The suppression will turn into something that's going to open up, and hopefully people will open up and liven up to see that this matters and that there's got to be something to do about it. We have to fight for it. And I'm with you guys 100%. So I'm really excited for you. I know it's going to go a long way. I wanted to ask you one last thing, both of you. I mean, Vaibhav, by the way, talk about you from going from this person that didn't want to talk about it all to fighting the Supreme Court. I mean, hello.
Quite in my ears.
I know.
That's emotional. That's awesome. Power to you. Standing here, that's incredible. You just did a 180 or 360, whatever you want to call it. 180.
Yeah.
Guys, for people that are out there listening right now, and I do hope that they comment later, share this post. I hope that it makes an impact on somebody. What words do you have to say to somebody that's out there? What words, advice would you say to somebody that's out there that wants to come out, that's on the edge, that's so reclusive back, that parents will just never understand? I mean, all of that in a nutshell. What do you want to say to them?
So Parag and I we believe in a lot of things. So Parag and I will share a little bit of this. But the first thing I would say is there's no one size fits all. For us, we were in an environment, Serena, where we felt safe and we came out. It could not be safe for somebody else. So it's very important for people to know when they're physically, emotionally, financially safe is when they should actually come out. And only when they're ready. They should never come under peer pressure. Like, you shouldn't be doing it because your friends are saying it or your relatives are saying it's time to come out or whatever. No, it is only when you're ready you should come out. When you do come out, lead with love, because anything can be conquered with love. In my case, I was scared to death. I was like, I don't know what's going to happen, but I knew the force of love was so powerful. It won over my parents, it won over everybody in my family, because I spoke with love, I spoke with kindness. So it's very, very important to lead with love, to lead with kindness. My parents, after that day, Serena, were very difficult to handle. They had a tough time getting over the fact that I was gay, but I was patient. I let them be, and I'm like, you will come to, an agreement with me eventually, and they did. So love, kindness, patience.
And I would just add that society only changes when we change it. There was this great campaign a few years ago called It Gets Better, to tell young gay people that even though it feels tough now, even though it feels scary, it gets better. I would just add to that, we have to make it better. It doesn't just get better on its own. We have to all take the steps to get better, make it better. And whether that's coming out to your friends and family, that's what changes the world. But also to remember this, if you're out there and you're struggling, if you think you might be LGBTQ and you're not sure about whether to come out, just know that you're perfect the way you are. Whatever happens with your family, there's a whole family out there that loves you and accepts you as who you are. Go find your community.
We are one of them. Yeah, we are your people.
And last but not least, I would say everybody deserves their own happy ending. We're still building ours, but you deserve yours too.
Awesome. You guys are beautiful inside and out, and I'm really excited and happy that we had this conversation. Thank you. My heart is gushing with lots of love at the moment, and I'm gonna have a good cry after. I really want to say thank you so much for chatting with me in a very open and candid conversation. And I hope it does make a difference to somebody that's out there listening. Guys, thank you so much. And for everyone that's out there, please comment, share. This gets to be shared with everybody. Do check out the documentary that they all are talking about right now, which is bodyworldhome.com. It's a powerful story. We'd love for you guys to see it. It's slowly coming together. And do check out Parag and Vaibhav's wedding. It's been everywhere. The speech that his father gave, the speech that both fathers gave, actually, it's out there. And so it's beautiful. And I really hope it inspires you to just to lead with love. I hope that their story inspires you to lead with love on many directions and levels. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you.
And namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste to you too. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.